Today, we are going to make some grass. No, I'm not in Colorado, so it's not going to be that kind of grass. It's our techniques that are so simple and sensible, your mowers will practically build themselves. Morning, folks. It's Mad Dog Merv. Today we're going to do an in-trunk review. I call it an in-trunk review because I'm going to open up the trunk of the Mustang. And here I have a couple of boxes. 8 cm. What's important is this is a model number 1-002 by Pig Model. And if you don't know what this is, well, you're about to find out. The reason we're doing it in the trunk is because you can see this thing's huge. Look at this. Look how long this thing is. It takes up like most of my trunk here. What it is, it's the new L71 shell from Pig Models. There's the projectile. And here is the main shell. Okay, let's see what else is in the box. There's not much in here, trust me. So there's the instructions. And let's take a look at the instructions. I'm sure they're pretty simple. My fingers won't work there this morning. Let's see. So here you go. You got some basic instructions on what to do, how to put it together, and the colors to paint it. But more importantly, where to put the stenciling. Okay, so we got that. And it looks like, let's see, oh, there's the stencils. And this must be, you can get it here. Oh yeah, and there's your bottom piece for the shell. And that's it. That's how it comes. So we were just going to review the parts while we're done, but we're actually going to go through and build this and paint it. So stick with us. Let's take a look first at the shell, and you can see that there is definitely some filler that's going to be needed on both sides here at the top. So we're going to have to do that. There is a ridge that runs along most of the shell that I'm going, or the projectile that I'm going to have to remove with a razor blade, and then this low indented area on the shell. So let's get started on a Pig Models 88 millimeter shell. So you've got the automotive filler in there, and we're going to mix some up, and we're going to fill. There's some area right here that we got to fill. And pan over here to the shell, and there's a big old low seam all the way down here. Hard for you to see, but yeah, I'm going to have to fill that. Now this is that ABS plastic or whatever, so it's going to be a real chore to figure out how to sand this and fill it. I just know I got to use automotive grade stuff to do it. So anyway, I'm going to work on this a little bit while I have some coffee. You can understand a little more what I'm doing here. I wanted to use some red automotive spot and glazing putty. So I went over to Checker and got the Bondo brand that I would usually get. Now keep in mind, I use this for a lot of my modeling stuff. I haven't been doing a lot of real automotive car painting in quite a few years, so I don't use it as much as I used to. Well, went over and bought some thinking I was getting the red putty, and there was a little tube sitting behind the big tube. Come to find out, this is a two-part glazing putty. I hate that. I hate mixing this stuff up because you gotta guess, and so I did. I guessed, and I made a dab there, and well, fortunately I was able to slather it on here, and it's tacky. It's only been on there about 4 or 5 minutes, so it's drying quick. I'll be able to come back and sand this probably in within the half hour. But Anyway, I do have some white, some white Squadron putty, and I like to thin that with Mr. Color Thinner. So I'm going to try that on part of the shell, and you can see I did 1/2 of the shell already. Got down towards the bottom, and this spot putty started to cure on me. So, but I was still able to fill all of the seam that I needed to. We'll see how that sands out here in a few minutes. All right, so here's the first part of what not to do. So this is where we had that automotive glazing putty. Okay, you can see how that went on there. Well, I'm sanding it with my 320 grit, and it's hardly doing anything. So I move up to a, gosh, I can't remember what this is, like a 120 or something, or 180. And it's just, this stuff's just kind of chipping out of here. That was a total disaster. So now I'm going to use some of the Squadron white putty, and I am going to mix it with a little bit of Mr. Color Thinner to soften it up just a little bit, not a whole lot. And then we're going to put this in the cracks and crevices. It really sucked that I had to chip all of that automotive spot putty out. It really did. So, live and learn. The Squadron white, we're going to see what happens with that with a little bit of Mr. Color Thinner. Now on this side, okay, this is where we use the Squadron white putty, where we had thinned it with the Mr. Color Thinner, and you see with the 320 it's sanded out just really nice. So take note, Squadron white putty, a little bit of Mr. Color Thinner, and you'll be able to fill that up really, really nice, and it sands out really good. Now, as far as painting it, I tried some Rust-Oleum sandable primer, and that just flakes right off. So I had in one of my containers some very old, and I think it was Veriprime or it was Semprime, I can't remember which, but it was one of the DuPont primers, automotive grade primers. And I used that to prime the shell, and it worked very, very well. I did use some of my 2X primer in a few spots, to especially on the projectile, because I know that has worked pretty good for me in the past. And so once I had everything primed and everything dried really well, then I took some of this Rust-Oleum 2-in-1, and I took the satin black, so kind of a light sheen to it, this primer and paint in one, and I painted the projectile with that. And then of course I had to mask everything off and do all of the markings and whatnot. That was easy to do. But for the casing this time, because late war 88mm ammunition was no longer made out of brass because of the brass shortage, they were using steel. So I took this Rust-Oleum metallic dark steel and painted the entire shell with that, and then went ahead and once it dried, and my stencil for the lettering, and let's take a look at the result. Well, so here it is. You can see it's got a nice shine to the shell itself. I mean, this looks like it just came out of the factory. The thing is, though, if I wanted to put a flat coat on it and make that steel look a little bit more worn, a little bit more weathered, I could do that. And I may do that down the road. With the projectile, you see how it turned out with painted with Testors silver, the bands on it. The other shells that I'd done copper, but this one called for silver, so that's what I did. You can see this looks pretty factory fresh. If I wanted to put a dull coat on it, that might help a little bit. But here's the bottom of the shell with the stenciling that I have on that, and I think it turned out pretty good. So a while back, I did the L56 version of this, which is the shorter shell for the regular Tiger 1. And I gave this to my boss for a Christmas present, actually. So you can see this is the brass color that's on there. And what I did for that shell is I used the 2X primer over the whole thing. So it does work. The 2X primer will work. You don't have to use the automotive. The automotive is much, much better, trust me. But anyway, I've used that. And then for the shell, I used VHT's Engine Metallic, metallic gold. And that's the color I've got on the shell for the Tiger 1. Anyway, hopefully this helped, and hopefully it was a good review for you. Take care. We'll see you next week.